The Suit and the Snake. The US-Israel attack on Iran is into the second week. Each passing day, there is a new escalation from warring parties. It has already transformed into a full-fledged regional war with global implications. The danger of spreading the conflict beyond its current trajectory is no more a possibility, but a reality. The fall of Bashar al-Assad of Syria seems to have been one of the key factors that enabled the current war on Iran. With that in mind, we will analyze how Syria could become a possible flashpoint. Before we dive in, let me remind you to subscribe to my channel. You could also become a part of the journey by extending support through Ko-fi. I have added the link in the comments section. First, we need to talk about the powerful jihadist who controls the Syrian lands. Let's dive deep. Our topic is the Suit and the Snake. Our story begins with one of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, Sir Richard Branson. Of course, he has nothing to do with Syria except for a man who followed his advice to the hilt. Sir Richard Branson once said, "A great reason for rebranding is to avoid being outdated." And guess what? It was not just one of the big corporations that took this famous quote to heart and proactively rebranded their organization's brand image, but a Syrian-born terrorist boss known as Abu Mohammad al-Jolani, who executed one of the most infamous rebrandings of our times. Leading Jabhat al-Nusra, an al-Qaeda affiliate during the Syrian civil war, he quickly realized the importance of branding his terror outfit as Jabhat Fatah al-Sham to survive the powerful state actors from Russia to the USA. Both those powers who played an active military role in the Syrian civil war hated everything that had any affiliation with al-Qaeda. When al-Jolani's terrorist organization was listed on the proscribed list of transnational terrorist entities, he went for another rebranding. This time he chose a user-friendly, innocently sounding acronym HTS. Those letters stood for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or Organization for the Liberation of the Levant. Whatever the objective of liberating the Levant meant for al-Jolani, his preferred methodology was nothing but armed violence directed against a state, a group, a religious minority, and the very idea of freedom. Unlike the previous times, Jolani was not alone in the last rebranding. Syria-based Salafi jihadist terror groups such as Harakatna al-Din al-Zinki, Liwa al-Haq, Jaish al-Sana, and Jabhat Ansar al-Din became the wingmen of al-Jolani. True to the promise of the very concept of rebranding, his efforts paid their dues. Al-Jolani managed to avoid the spotlight and survived another day. While all his jihadi colleagues were sent to where any evil man would be sent to by the Syrian, Iranian, Russian, and American forces in the Syrian war. From being a merciless jihadi hailing from the notorious al-Qaeda, whose purpose of beheading every living thing that opposes your extremist idea, to becoming a jihadi light, where state intelligence apparatus tolerated your existence, was a success story for Jolani's HTS. He was even given media coverage by the Western press and portrayed as an example of a moderate rebel who fought for the liberation of oppressed Syrian people. If only those who were brutally murdered by him and his terror factor could speak. The betrayal and the red carpet. With the tacit support of the Western media and the Turkish spin doctors, Jolani had a resounding PR victory. Followed by a collapse of the Syrian army, he finally achieved his goals. He tore apart the fragile agreement known as the Astana format between Russia, Iran, and Turkey, which guaranteed the peace and stability of Syria, and along with tens of other organizations. He marched on the Syrian government-held areas, capturing city after city, finally emerging its head of state. This is where the hypocrisy of the geopolitical currents reaches its zenith, and where the narrative becomes a hideous betrayal of the dead. Yesterday's most wanted is today's guest of honor. Nations that spent billions and lost countless soldiers from the White House to the Kremlin to hunt down al-Qaeda's leadership have pivoted. In a move of sheer geopolitical convenience, they've traded the kill list for the red carpet. How did we get here? This rebranded terrorist, who still commands an organization responsible for untold sectarian violence, has successfully positioned himself as a necessary counterweight to Bashar al-Assad. This open acceptance and rebranding have effectively positioned al-Jolani as a convenient chess piece, easy to make deals with, and currently useful for the geopolitical objectives of certain state actors. But the real question is, how long will his rule last? Especially in a conflict that is existential for certain states. Theoretically, his rule could last as long as he remains useful and the interests of various actors are preserved. The first sign of change of heart could be the beginning or end of the snake in suit. There have been many before him who were crowned, protected, pried and thrown under the bus when they became a spent force. That is the brutality of political realism. A pawn is always a pawn meant to be sacrificed. It is vital to understand that this strategic tolerance is merely a pause, not a solution. It will not, by necessity, address the fundamental, deepest Syrian divisions that have fueled this inferno. al-Jolani's success and his temporary diplomatic convenience are built on a bedrock of ethnic and sectarian hatred that promises future conflict and may very well be ignited. As a spill-over effect of the war in the neighborhood, the Alawites, who faced a sudden and existential threat after a generation of dominance, will not forget the massacres, nor will they accept this new status quo. They will wait for their opportunity, regroup, amass resources, rearm, and will come for their blood. When they do, the very same states laying red carpets to al-Jolani will arm and funnel the funds to dispose of al-Jolani, backing them to the hilt as it was always their agenda. Iran, humiliated by al-Jolani, has waited with strategic patience. It will not accept a permanent loss of influence in Syria. As long as al-Jolani makes no moves against Iran-backed Hezbollah, Tehran will not seek the destabilization of this Turkish-backed reality. For now, it's licking the wounds of losing some invaluable regional allies, from Bashar al-Assad to Hassan Nasrallah. As much as the current status quo seems challenging, there could emerge just the perfect partners and opportunities for Iran in its long march, perhaps more useful and brutal than the ones before. This is the case of Levant, a land whose history has been written in blood and betrayals. Al-Jolani being a silent observer of the conflict rather than a facilitator or an instigator will make him a pragmatic partner post the current conflict. This entire edifice of convenience rests precariously on two factors. In the short term, if in the current conflict, al-Jolani moves against Hezbollah from rhetoric to action, It is difficult to imagine how Iranian missiles and drones might not fly to Damascus. After all, Damascus has no known air defense cover. Iran might even opt for an Iraqi militia group to march on Damascus to set fire to the Syrian powder keg. Men with arms are plenty across the Levant. If the tide changes, the Russians may very well allow the Alawites to join them and even arm them to reverse the al-Jolani's fortunes. Let's imagine that al-Jolani decides not to take sides, but to let the warring parties use his airspace in the conflict. It is fair to say that under such circumstances, the current status quo of Syria will live past the ongoing cycle of violence. But in the long term, he may face a different challenge. This is the second factor we spoke about: the shifting political sands of Turkey. A shock defeat for the ruling AKP party could unravel these deepest divisions in Syria in a matter of a single night, stripping al-Jolani of his critical patron and immediately reigniting the conflict's sectarian core. This tactical acceptance of a reformed terrorist is nothing more than a temporary fix to a profound existential fissure. What might come next will not be a ripple, it will be an earthquake. But for now, the geopolitical establishment is content to welcome the terrorist as he wears suits. And as always, this is your host Donica de Quella, signing off.